Hello, my friends, and welcome back. Thank you very much for being with me again today. The daily update of the Ukrainian front, and as always, having a Russian article and the Ukrainian article. Ukrinform and Sputnik will tell us definitely exactly how things are on the Ukrainian front. So let's start with the Ukrainians. And as I said, this is Ukrinform. Right here, the date is July 10th, 2023. Defense forces continue offensive in south. Fierce battles raging in east. Okay. Fierce battles are raging in the Kupiansk, Liman, Bakhmut, Avdiivka, and Marinka directions. 17 combat engagements have occurred there in the past 24 hours. So let's see. Kupiansk, Lyman, Bakhmut, Avdiivka, Marinka, nothing changed, the same thing, this area right here, in Luhansk and Donetsk. So here is Kupiansk, which is actually in Kharkiv. Kupiansk is right here, and then, so this direction where you see the black AK-47s here, AK right here in Kupiansk, here is Lyman, down is Bakhmut, down is Avdiivka and Marinka. So this is where the whole thing occurs as an offensive. And the Ukrainians claim they also attack here in the south, but no evidence according to the Russian map. Let's go to the Ukrainians. On the night of July 10th, 2023, Russia launched another missile attack on the infrastructure object in the city of Mykolaiv. The enemy also launched 22 airstrikes and opened fire with multiple launch rocket systems, about 30 times. Unfortunately, civil infrastructure was affected and casualties among civilians were reported. So the Ukrainians always start with a summary of the day, and then they're going to start with telling us about the front starting on the north by Belarus, and then northeast, and then east, and then they go southeast, and then south. Back to the Ukrainians. The threat of Russian missile and airstrike is persisting all over Ukraine, according to the General Staff. In the Volyn and Polisia directions, the operational situation remained rather unchanged. In the Siversky and Slobozansky directions, Russian troops launched airstrikes near the Kharkiv region of Besove, Odnobivka, and Veterinarne. The enemy also attacked about 10 settlements with artillery and mortars. So they were talking about the north and this area right here. This is Kharkiv. But here the Russians show only the Ukrainians shelling the Russian positions or the villages, according to the Russians, in Russia. This is interesting right here. Let's see what that is. So Ukrainian forces shelled the village. There were no casualties. The shelling damaged 2 residential houses, a kindergarten. Okay, they copied now the Ukrainians. Ukrainians have been telling the whole, all this war that the Russians are destroying only kindergarten, schools, hospitals. About 7 months ago, the Russians started reporting exactly the same thing. What a coincidence, right? So, in the Kupiansk direction, Ukrainian warriors are firmly holding defense. So they are in the defense. Russian artillery and mortar strikes affected the Kharkiv region. So they are talking about right here, this area. So let's see what's happening over there according to the Russians. Right here. Units of the Zapad battle group hammered Ukrainian troops and military equipment using air and artillery strikes. Next to it, the same thing. Back here, the same thing. And then let's see what happened here where supposedly they met face to face. Russian forces successfully repelled all attacks by Ukrainian troops and thwarted the activity of a Ukrainian sabotage and reconnaissance group. Below here, the Center battle group successfully repelled all attacks by Ukrainian troops. And here probably a drone was downed. Correct, a drone was down over there. And here another drone, down 2 drones. And then we go here to the Lyman area. Here is the Lyman. Let's see what the Ukrainians are telling us about Lyman. Right here, in the Lyman direction. Russian invaders launched airstrikes near the Donetsk region's Rozdolivka and Bilokhorivka. Over 15 settlements were affected by Russian artillery strikes. Let's see what the Russians are saying. Units of the Center Battle Group hammered Ukrainian troops and military equipment using air and artillery strikes. The Center Battle Group successfully repelled all attacks by Ukrainian troops. The Center Battle Group struck Ukrainian troops and military equipment using air and artillery strikes. And the last one, the same thing. And let's see what happened in Kramatorsk. Russian forces destroyed an ammunition depot of Ukraine's 56th Mechanized Brigade. And then we go to Bakhmut area, which is south, right here. Let's see what the Russians are saying. Thanks to their experience, the Yug battle group successfully repelled all attacks by Ukrainian troops. The Ukrainians claim, here's Artemovsk, Bakhmut, that they are pushing the Russians on the side of Bakhmut, which seems to be correct, according even with the Russian map. Because the Russians were here inside there and inside here. So the Ukrainians pushed here and here, north and south of Artemovsk, Bakhmut. Let's see what they say here. In the Bakhmut direction, under extensive enemy air and artillery attacks, Ukrainian forces repelled Russian attacks near the Donetsk region's Khryhorivka. The occupiers launched an airstrike near Toretsk. Over 10 settlements were affected by Russian artillery strikes. Nothing then. In the Avdiivka, now we move south of Bakhmut. In the Avdiivka direction, Ukraine's defense forces continue holding back Russia's onslaught near the Donetsk region, Sievernia. The enemy launched an airstrike near Avdiivka. Over 10 settlements were affected by Russian artillery strikes. All right, let's see what the Russians are saying. So we go south here to the Avdiivka, which is right here. So in the area here are all Ukrainian attacks, bombardments, shelling of Russian positions. Let's see what they say here. Ukrainian forces fired 4 MLRS rockets and 17 152mm and 155mm shells at the city. Donetsk. Ukrainian forces shelled the Kiev. Okay, so they shelled all this with 155s, 155, and here is 155. Let's see what happened here in Vodianoye and Nevelstoye. Thanks to their expertise, the Yug battle group successfully repelled all attacks by Ukrainian troops. And here, the same thing. And here another bombardment, correct. And here probably a drone. Russian air defenses shot down 2 Ukrainian drones. So this is in the Avdiivka. And we're going to go south to Marinka, which is where they destroyed 2 drones. Let's see what the Ukrainians are saying in the Marinka. In the Marinka direction, under enemy artillery strikes, Ukrainian defenders repelled all Russian attacks near the Donetsk regions, Marinka and Krasnohorivka. Near the latter, the enemy also launched an airstrike. Over 10 settlements were affected by Russian shelling. Now we go on Shakhtarske, which is south of that, where is Uhledar or Vuhledar. In the Shakhtarske direction, Russian troops conducted unsuccessful offensive actions near the Donetsk region, Novomikhailivka. The enemy launched an airstrike near the Donetsk region's Odradnye. Over 10 settlements were affected by Russian shelling. So they were talking about this little portion in this, where we don't see anything actually happening here. And here, let's see what the Russians are saying. The Vostok battle group successfully repelled all attacks by Ukrainian troops using heavy flamethrower system and artillery strikes. And here, Russian forces thwarted the activity of a Ukrainian sabotage and reconnaissance group. And here we move in Zaporizhzhia. This is Zaporizhzhia Oblast. Let's see what they say here, the Russians. Russian air defenses shot down a Ukrainian drone. Coordinated actions of Russian forces hammered concentrations of Ukrainian troops and military equipment of the 106th Territorial Defense Brigade. The Vostok battle group successfully repelled all attacks by Ukrainian troops using heavy flamethrower systems and artillery strikes. Russian forces struck a command post of Ukraine's 47th Mechanized Brigade. So, shelling. Let's see what the Ukrainians are saying. Shelling, Ukrainians are saying. All right. In the Zaporizhzhia and Kherson direction, Russian troops are focusing efforts to prevent Ukrainian forces from advancing. Over 20 settlements were affected by Russian artillery strikes. And now we go south. I don't know if these guys are talking about it. We're supposed to talk about Kherson area, where it seems like the Ukrainians shelled the Russian positions, and this is the Iskander M hitting Mykolaiv. The Russian forces destroyed an ammunition depot of Ukraine Kherson combined battle group. I made a video on this earlier today. Let's see what the Ukrainians are saying. In the Zaporizhzhia and Kherson direction, so they used all this here. Russian troops are focusing efforts to prevent Ukrainian. Okay, we did this one. Meanwhile, Ukraine's defense forces continue conducting the offensive operation in the Melitopol and Berdyansk directions, gaining foothold within the recaptured frontiers, attacked the detected enemy targets with artillery, and carried out counter-battery measures. In the past 20, they end up with a final summary. In the past 24 hours, Ukraine's air forces have launched 4 strikes on enemy personnel, ammunition, and military equipment clusters. The Ukrainian military also destroyed 3 Russian reconnaissance unmanned aerial vehicles. Ukraine's missile and artillery units hit 1 Russian command post, 3 enemy personnel, military equipment, and ammunition clusters, 1 ammunition depot, 7 artillery systems in firing position, and 1 air defense system, missile system. Okay, only military targets, no civilians, only the Russians, right? Right. So this is what both sides want us to believe happened on the front. And to be fair, we have to pick from both sides, which I did, and they don't really overlap the information or match too much. But it doesn't matter. We can look over the map. I'm surprised with the Russians showing the map in Bakhmut not like this, but flat. So Bakhmut is here instead of showing like this as it used to. Right now it's like this, pushed back by the Ukrainians, north and south. I'm surprised that they would show that. Why? Because they all lie, and it seems like these guys are really, telling the truth over there, because the Ukrainians were saying that they advance north and south of Bakhmut. So they confirm it. Thank you very much for being with me again today. Stay strong, stay smart, look for the truth, and be just.